I'm really excited about having our guest speaker today, somebody who I think really highly of, as well as John and Mark. We become friends with this person, and I'll introduce him right now. And Donnie, if you were on, but a quick introduction. Donnie Jones is, hey Donnie, how are you? Donnie is the head coach of Stetson University. And before that, of course, and where we got to know Donnie was he was the head coach of UCF men's basketball and did some great things for the program. Before that was the head coach at Marshall. I forget about Marshall, coach.
Yeah,
and and back-to-back national championships teams. He was assistant for University of Florida and for Billy Donovan, and also worked for the Los Angeles Clippers. One of the things when I'm looking back at your background, coach, and seeing the people you recruited, some of the names that jumped out at me: David Lee, Mike Miller, Jason Williams, Hassan Whiteside. And I would be remiss if I didn't forget probably your biggest recruit ever, Taco Fall. And Taco is a great ambassador for UCF, and everyone who had a chance to meet him knows that you had a hand in bringing him to UCF. Also that you coach both Marcus and Jeffrey Jordan, and I think you're also a personal friend of Michael Jordan, which is pretty cool, what you were able to do with Marcus and Jeffrey. But I asked Coach to come in and just spend a few minutes and speak about some of the things that he's been through, some tips to remain positive. Donnie actually introduced me to John Gordon many years ago, and we've maintained a friendship so then. So thank you, Coach, for doing this. Can't thank you enough. Really, really appreciate it. The floor is yours.
Yeah, well, thanks, Bill. It's great to be with you, and thanks for having me. And what an honor. I've been fortunate to be around some great teams and some great coaches and great people, and to have a chance to speak to your organization is one of those great teams. So let me congratulate you and your team, and obviously got to know you and Diane and John and Mark really well during my time there. And I saw you in action throughout, not only at work, but also away from work, of what kind of chemistry you all have and your culture. And that's to be commended. And there's no secret why you've had success as a group and an organization and your people, because people matter. And it starts with your people. And your culture has been a great indication of that. You know, I was looking at a lot of the things you all have had as a company and your success. And I'm always studying companies. And the year I was out after UCF, in between coaching, before I joined the Los Angeles Clippers, I did a lot of studying of programs, not just basketball, but the business world. I spoke to a lot of companies like this, did a lot of workshops, met with a lot of CEOs, and really just learned the mindset. And it's not much different than what we deal with in sports. I was fortunate to be a part of some great programs, around some great Hall of Fame coaches. I've been around some of the greatest minds in the world. A lot of you are probably watching, if you're sports fans, The Last Dance there with Michael Jordan. I had the ability to see Michael in a different life, not only as a competitor, but also as a father, which is pretty cool. And getting to coach his sons and really learning a lot about their family dynamics, and obviously learning the success that Michael had as a player a lot, you know, from his sons. But kind of the message I thought today, there's a lot of messages. I went back and forth. I've been doing a lot of talks during this time, these last 8 weeks. We've had a lot of chance to reset the button in life and had a chance to reflect. And I just took over a new program here, and it seems like I'm kind of the culture builder, because every program that I've been fortunate to coach at, from Marshall to UCF to now Stetson, we're trying to breathe life into a place that's never won. They've had 19 straight seasons of losing. And so how do we change a mindset and a culture? And so with that, you know, we walked into Marshall. They've had 7 straight losing seasons. UCF, same situation. So how do we bring life into people? And so a lot of things I've learned and being a part of some great teams. We played for 3 national championships while I was at Florida. We won 2 of them. We were voted the team of the decade in college basketball, which is, you know, with Kentucky, Duke, and North Carolina and UCLA. So we did it for not just 1 year, 2 years, or 3. We did it for 10. And so our culture was pretty good. And it's no secret to what you're all doing there. So a couple of things in my message today is to encourage you of what you're doing, is to continue to, during this time, as we go through. I wrote down a couple things here. And how do you continue to become a great team? And right now you have a great team, but how can you become better? Because our challenge every year is comfort is a sign of weakness sometimes. It can be the enemy of greatness. And I think you got to continue to, there's different paths. We always talked about getting to the mountaintop. And that path to get to the mountaintop every year changed. We won back-to-back national championships. There were only 2 programs in the history of college basketball to do that, and that was UCLA and Duke. And here we are, a non-name in Florida, everything known for football, and we're supposed to go out and try to repeat for a national championship. So how do you do it? So in going through that, I'm going to share a couple quick things with you, and I'll pump through them with a couple quick stories. The first thing, we just had to figure out who we were. Why are we trying to do what we're doing? What was our purpose? What were we trying to accomplish? We talked about that every day. The best teams communicate. The best businesses communicate. They share. They care. They're constantly trying to make each other better in the ways that they talk. And the second thing we talked about, we had to put a roadmap together for what we were going to do. What was our plan? What was our mindset of how we were going to teach it? What was the language we was going to teach our team and how we communicated? Because our language was different than anybody else's because it was a language that we taught ourselves, not only the coaching staff, but our players and what we did. The third thing we talked about was how was we going to equip our people, our staff, our leaders, just like you do there. It's like today. Me coming in today, if you can get one thing from this talk, it's helping equip you to grow. How did we do that? And I met this guy, and I want to share this story. It's one of the best things that I experienced during my time out from UCF in the Gap. I met a guy named General Mark Hartling, who's a 3-star general that lived in my neighborhood. And I used to go over and get my hair cut from this lady in town. She kept saying, "You got to meet the general, coach. You got to meet the general. You and him are so much alike. You got to meet him." So she connected us. So I went and had coffee with Mark, General Hartling, and we sat down. And make a long story short, we talked for 4 straight hours. I don't know if I ever blinked the whole time because of how much I was learning from him. And we were sharing stories. He wanted to know about the sports world, and I wanted to know about the military world and what he had done. So long story short, he takes me to with him, and we go. He calls me one morning and says, "I'm taking a group. I work at Florida Hospital. I'm over the leadership committee there, and we're going to take 60 doctors, and we're going to fly over to Gettysburg, and we're going to reenact the Civil War for 2 days. I want you to be my guest." And I'm like, wow, I'm so excited. So he gives me this book to read, and it's about 300 pages long. And he says, "You got 2 weeks to read it because I want you to have a mindset of what the war's about." Long story short, we go there. We go through 2 days. We walk the battlefield, stories at every situation, what happened, why, and why that was important. And there was one thing that stood out to me while we were there. He talked about the ability to equip each other. That's what the Gettysburg War was mainly about. And the people that were dying and the people that were put in leadership positions in the moment. And so one of the things that they learn in the U.S. military when you're there is they take you to charm school. And when you go to charm school, the first place they take you to is Gettysburg to do exactly what we just done, to learn the past and understand the mentality is it doesn't matter what you know if the guy beside you doesn't know it. And so he talked about going to charm school. He says he walks in, he's one of the top 30 Army guys in the country as a cadet. And this guy walks in who's a general, a 4-star general, and he says, "Hey, congratulations. We're glad all of you are here. That means you're the top 30 in your field. But we just want you to know that all 30 of you, we could put you on an airplane and run you right into the side of the mountain, and it would blow up, and the United States military would not miss a beat without you." So he's sitting there with this big ego thinking, wow, this is about me today. It's about me. But then why is he saying that? Well, the reasoning is because in the military, you got to be able to take what you learn. It isn't what you know, it's what the people beside you know. Just like in your company right now. It doesn't matter what your CEO, your president knows if you don't know it. So you got to be able to share it. How do you equip your people every day? So great teams are able to equip their people. And then we talk about the next thing. How do you manage adversity? We're having adversity right now. Depends on how you look at it. I was listening to a great talk with a guy who's a CEO of a company. It's a $300 million company. And he was telling me he just overcome cancer about 3 months ago. And he was talking about the most important day that he learned, this is not adversity to him, was the day after. the day after. He says there's three absolutes in life: death, God, and the day after, if you're still alive. So what is the day after for you in your plan in a company and in life of how you're going to come back with stuff? How are you going to bounce back? What is your plan? What is your company's plan? How are you thinking and growing during the day after? Because as a leader, which is what we all are, and if you have any type of influence and somebody's following you, then you're in a position of leadership. The people are watching you when things aren't going well. How are you going to respond under pressure? How are you going to lead through times that are uncertain? And because most of the time when there's a crisis, everybody's in fear because they're in an unnormal situation like we are now. And so you'll see people rise to the top through this situation, or just like Bill was just talking about now, you see unemployment the worst it's ever been since even the Great Depression. It took 10 years to build this economy to where it is, and it's been tore down in less than a month. That's how things are in life, but you can also build it up. And I heard this scenario today. I was listening to this guy read every morning for 3 hours to start my day. He's talking about the power of bamboo. Bamboo was in 7,000 years ago. This guy in China, who was in Shanghai, who was the leader of the Shanghai Empire, discovered bamboo. And bamboo, when you plant it, it's really hard to plant as a seed, and it doesn't grow for 5 years. It takes 5 years for bamboo to pop through the ground and grow. But when it grows, after that 5th year, you got to be able to water it. You got to be able to preserve it. You got to have patience. You got to make sure it's in the right soil. You got to deal with the adversity of everybody telling you it's not going to grow, it's not going to work. And then all of a sudden it plops through the ground and it grows so fast, up to 90 feet in 1 month. 90 feet in 1 month, bamboo grows. So it goes, it's kind of like life. It's kind of, we all want the now and we want it to happen quick, but most things that we plan and prepare for that have value take time. But we also see that it can be taken away in a quick period of time, just like the economy with this virus that's going through us now. So I think it's a challenge for us now. How we manage adversity is one of the biggest things. And then the next thing we talk about is how you adapt and embrace change. Right now, how are you going to adapt and embrace this? I talk to 18-year-old kids on the phone. All right, we communicate every day. They got to hear something. There's 350,000 messages going through a human's brain on a daily basis. So, what are we doing right now? How do we equipping them by what we're talking about? So I have a message every day. It's not long. It's no more than 15 minutes like I'm talking now, but there's got to be some kind of message that I'm sharing with them to encourage them, to coach them, to teach them, to continue to deal with the now. All right. And the next thing we talk about is, just like sports, do you know how to huddle? When there's been some bumps in the road, how's your team get together? Like you're on this huddle call here right now, you're on this Zoom call. We call them huddle calls. All right. So it's a Zoom call. We call it a huddle call because we talk from a sports mentality, but great businesses, they got to know how to huddle, how they get together, how do they communicate, how do they share. All right. And most of our kids are going through isolation right now. They've had 8 weeks. They can't go out and work out. They can't go to a gym. They're doing something that's never been asked for them to do. Is the best thing they can do is just stay home and be safe. So how are we doing with isolation right now? So how are we talking about that in the huddle? And then the next thing we talk about, how do you improve through scouting? So even in your business and life, how do you improve? All right. The worst thing to do to steal your joy is to get caught up into comparison. All right. I remember being a track athlete and running out on the track when I was in the 8th grade, and I was running the relays. And the worst thing I could do was look over to the guy beside me in the lane because it threw off my rhythm. It threw off my pace, and it could cost me the win in the race. I had to stay in my lane and focus on where I was headed to. But to be able to improve, we have to be aware of what's going on and how we can grow and how other businesses have dealt with these type of situations in the past in adversity, and equipped the people around us to be able to learn from that as well. And then the ninth thing that we talk about is how do you avoid all the pitfalls that people's had during these times of success? How do you avoid it? It's important to recognize what's happened. You look at some of these companies right now, it's hard to plan for what's happened. This has never happened before. But you will see companies who will rise and who will be bigger, better, because anytime there's a crisis, the mother of invention takes over. If you're a great leader, the mother of invention takes over. How are you being innovative right now during this time? And then the last thing I'd say to you is how are you all as a group right now coming together and understanding the importance of speaking the same language? Okay, how are you speaking the same language during this time? Are we all on the same page of how we're communicating with all the difficulties and all the things that's happening with each and every one of you? Are we sharing what we're going through? And I think that's as important right now as, how are we managing our mindset? That's what I talk to about our team a lot, your mindset right now. What's going to separate great teams, great organizations, great leaders is, we talk about the energy level right now. We're talking about winning the weight. How do you win the weight? We're waiting, but how are we going to win it? All right, there's going to be some types of leadership. There's 3 different types. You can lead in front, you can lead side by side, or you can lead from behind where you got to push somebody to the finish line. So our mentality is to try to lead side by side, especially with the kids today, because they're going through a lot. So we have to lead side by side where we're holding hands with a lot of love, a lot of encouragement, a lot of listening, and trying to talk about winning the weight. What have you done today? What's the next right thing that you've done today? Because I don't know what tomorrow brings, okay, other than what we're taking care of today. And I think that's important here as we move through this right now is more than anything, we talk about the mindset and the energy. Where are you putting your energy towards something right now? Are we caught up in the crisis, which we can't do anything about? Or are you putting your energy towards something to get better at? And there's going to be guys who and ladies who do something that's uncommon. There always is when there's a crisis. And it really comes down to one's spirit and one's mindset during this time. And some of the greatest things, if you look, when we talk about how do we improve through scouting, you look at what people have done in the past, who's been able to come out of these crisis situations. I mean, they say back in the Great Depression, that was the greatest time. If you listen to my dad and some of the people, he says, because of the people during that time, they didn't forget what they went through. Those real life experiences humbled them, made them come together as a country and rally together as a team and remember what they went through, not with bitterness, not with blame. If you turn on CNN, all you hear is the blame game. You turn on Fox, you hear how great somebody is. So it gets to the point where you don't know what to follow. So it's important that you take a little bit of each and the rest of it, you turn off and you move forward because there's so much political warfare going in the world. So what are you feeding your soul every day with your energy level? So those are some things, I thought was good. And, and I'll share one more story in closing here. We tell our guys this all the time, and I think it's important, the difference between positive and negative. And as Bill mentioned, John Gordon's a good friend of mine. I knew John Gordon before he was John Gordon. And, he's a great man. And he just really talks about positivity. And, one thing that I heard this story many, many years ago, probably 20 years ago when I was a player. And we had this guy come in and speak. He was an Indian. And he said that he had an old grandfather who talked about his soul. And he talked about his soul was there was a good wolf and there was a bad wolf. And in your soul, you had the good and you had the bad. And both these wolves are fighting every day against each other in your soul. And finally, this little Indian grandson asked his grandfather, he says, well, which one's going to win, Grandpa? Which one's going to win? You got a good wolf and a bad wolf. Which one's going to win? And he says the good wolf represents, bounce back spirit, love, grace, forgiveness, and you got the bad wolf. It's negative, it's energy draining, it's critical, it blames, it's bitter. So he says, well, which one's going to win, Grandpa? You got both those wolves inside your heart. And he says, whatever one you feed the most. So whatever you're feeding yourself is going to be what you become. And during this time, I challenge you. You all have been an incredible company. You build relationships, you connect people. That's been your strength, is your culture. So during this time, I challenge you to take this thing to a different level. Okay, be bigger. There's not a better time or a more needed time in our world right now than to have leaders and people who can connect people, but most importantly, encourage people. You can never go wrong by encouraging people. Be kind during this time. There's a lot of hostility. There's a lot of uncertainty, and a lot of people just need to hear good stuff from somebody. But I appreciate the opportunity to say hello to you all. Bill, look forward to catching up some more now that I'm back in this area here over in DeLand. So thanks for having me. I'm a big fan of your company, and congratulations to your team on all your
Awesome.
success.
Thank you, Coach. We're big fans of you, and you just had one of the best seasons that Stetson's had in so many years, and it really was a culture change, and that's immediately what happened. So cannot thank you enough. Please follow and support Coach, and you do so much on social media. Our team can follow you there, and go Stetson next year outside of when you play UCF.
Absolutely, Bill. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it, sir.
Hey,